entire session, and I'm sure everybody else did as well. And the whole session was very, very, very fruitful. And the way you showed various strategies to actually influence students and how to go about changing those strategies as and when you move forward. It was really, really good. So I would request the audience to either drop questions in the chat box, or either unmute themselves to ask.
Perfect. Do you want me to look through the questions here? I can talk a little bit about this. I wanna make sure that you know that this can be applied. So someone asked about higher education. Yeah, I want you to know that what we do is it's not so much you have to do anything I talked about, but I want you to keep in mind the design wheel, where you have a problem, you look at the research. The research is the key. You know, you can do our intervention program, and I'm glad to help you. If you email me, I'll help and support you. I'm happy to meet with any of you. If you want to send me an email, drop me a note. But the thing is, when you look at the research, that's the key. So use John Hattie, use Marzano, use Whitaker, use those research-based things, and don't just guess. I see so many times where people say, oh, we're going to do this. And I say, well, the research doesn't really support that. You know, there's some research out there for everything. And really, you just have to look at it and say what it is. And then I go to John Hattie and I say, well, what does John Hattie say? Because you can find research that points every different direction. So does it apply to higher education? Absolutely. So what does the research say about higher education? What does John Hattie say about it? You know, I think that one of the top ones I really love is self-reported grades. You know, how many times do we as teachers say, here's your grade? Well, what if we said to a student, what's your grade? And we make them justify what their grade is. And they say, this is my grade and this is why. You know, those are the fun things. Those are the things I really love. So yeah, does it work for higher education? Absolutely. Strategies for pupil teachers. I'm not sure what that means. Like a student teacher or someone who's just coming into the education. If you are teaching those who are coming into our education, my suggestion for you is to make sure that you get them to study the research. Don't just have them do things because it's what they think they should do. The research is the key. Let's see. Lots of research on school education and higher education is being done in India. The only problem is it's not shared with the schools. Yeah, that's so hard. You know, there's a lot of times when there's research out there, but it's not pushed out to you. I have to go mine my research. I go find it. John Hattie's website is a huge place for me. I start there and then I go read the research. So John Hattie's will say, this is the research you see, and then you go find it. You know, and that's the thing. The homework situation, we were struggling with homework. We were writing policy. Then I went to John Hattie and I saw homework didn't really have an impact. And I said, what? How does homework not have an impact? I mean, come on, we want kids to practice all these math problems. Well, when you watch the video that I suggested, it's really clear there's no research that would indicate that's a good thing. And I said, what are we doing? What are we doing? So I even showed the video to my parents. And I said, take your time and do other things. One of the things I didn't mention is there's something called the Search Institute, and they have what's called the 40 developmental assets. It's 40 assets that your child should have that will help them be successful. Things like having an adult outside of your influence that you can talk to or trust, playing a musical instrument, being part of an outside group like Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, attending church or another organization like that, being part of a religious group. Those are all things that help build your child's character and move them forward. So if you're looking for other things to do besides homework, the Search Institute's 40 developmental assets. And the 40 developmental assets are all age-based. So they'll have one for younger kids, one for intermediate, one for older kids. Yeah. Let's see, there's a comment here that says, student teachers, research should be basis of each field. Absolutely. We should always look to the research. Universities are not connected with the school districts. Oh, well, you know, that's a thing where we have to teach all these students exactly that we should be questioning. We should look at the research. We should do that. Let's see. effective inclusion students with special needs. So my schools, the last 3 schools I've been at, have accepted every child. And what we found is with our intervention block, that's where we get the support. That's where it works. We used to have a program at my schools, and in every school I've gone to, they pull the kids out. Here's your special session. And they miss something. They miss social studies or science, or they miss math to do a different math. And I always question them and I say, why are we doing this? Why are we pulling these kids out of these things? They're not getting them. They're not missing. They're not getting those pieces. How can you do fractions if you've never been exposed to it? So then you get to be in 8th grade and they say, okay, now we're going to study fractions and multiply them. Well, they don't even understand the concept of basic fractions. Well, then they get pulled out of math again and they go to a special needs class where they get sit in a class to do fractions. Well, if they would have just been exposed and the concepts, it would help them so much. Let's see, research mindness should be engraved during childhood only. Yes, that's absolutely true. All right, with questions should always be making us restless. Yep. I'm always pushing my staff. It's never the status quo. We never let it go unless we feel like we're getting it. Like when we finally had 3 years in Rio, where we had our kids meeting at 80% and 90%, if we just lower the bar just a little bit, I said, we got it, let's keep going. And we were right on track. It was so fun to see. And then, I don't know if you guys are aware, but COVID hit. It caused us into a huge loop. It's going to be crazy for all of us around the world to try to get back to where we were. It's going to have huge impacts on us in every way, shape, and form. But the good news is the research out there that John Hattie actually did looked at is that kids learn well in online if it's a good online program. So make sure you're giving a good online program.
Mr. Nate, can I?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is good evening. I think it's, this is Dr. E. Prasad Rao, Chairman, Paramita Group of Schools close to Hyderabad, this is Karimnagar. You know, I think it's quite interesting, you know, for the teachers and the leaders to really rely upon the research and its foundings, you know, when you really actually take up the teaching learning matrix, and that's very well said. Having said that, you know, for example, why homework is very monotonous for the kids, especially in the secondary grade, probably the very nature of the homework that the teachers give probably doesn't evoke much of enthusiasm. That's point one I have really come across. And point number 2 is, for example, if you go for a flipped classroom, like a school becomes homework becomes the schoolwork. If you have a flipped classroom, will that really not serve the purpose where the kids really do their work at home with a lot of care and engagement and you know, with a lot of, you know, involvement? Does it not become a possibility?
Yes, very, very valid point. The first one, I want to talk with you about homework being boring or homework not being what kids should maybe do. If you watch the video that I suggested by Alfie Cohen, he'll say it doesn't really matter. It's funny because he says, sure, give them different homework, but if you're going to give homework, at least have some thought about the homework. You know, I used to challenge my math teachers to say, you need to give the children the answers. And my math teachers would say, what? We can't give them the answers? And I said, well, let me just put it this way. Let's say that you're learning basketball and you go out and you take the basketball and you dribble and you shoot. Well, you do it like this. You take 2 hands and you shoot it like this. That's not how you shoot a basketball, but I just spent an hour shooting it incorrectly. I spent an hour, now I've learned how to do it incorrectly. So I challenged my math teacher and I said, give them the answers. Let them shoot it, it's wrong. Okay, let's correct it right away. And so my math teachers kind of said, this is crazy, Nate, we shouldn't give them the answers. And I said, your test scores will improve if kids are practicing and they're actually getting that feedback right away, because feedback has to be specific and timely. So they have to know they're doing the problem incorrectly. They look at how they got to the right problem, and then they can move forward. So if you're gonna do homework, at least give them the answers in math. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it's one of those things where if kids are doing all the problems wrong or they don't know what they're doing or they struggle, we should if kids are going to cheat, they're going to cheat in any other way. This gives them a chance to do that. Your second point about homework, that it should be meaningful and done by the teachers. And wait, was that your second point? What was your second point again? Can you tell me again? Sorry, you're muted.
If homework becomes classwork and classwork becomes homework.
Yeah, so the flipped classroom, there is some research that says that does really help, actually, where kids are going home and watching something. Flipped classroom is great if you do it correctly. So we encourage our teachers to give a short video that gives the kids examples and get them thinking about what they're doing. So when they come in, and if you look at John Hattie's work, let's see, if you look at the Hattie thing, there is previous knowledge or prior knowledge, and that's one of the top 3. And we actually used it when we did our intervention block. Because remember I talked about our EAL students, our English as additional language learners, and how they struggled because they didn't have the vocabulary. So what we were doing is we were pre-teaching them the vocabulary for the next lessons. So that when they came in, they had that, and they were ready because they knew the vocabulary the teacher was going to talk about. And we actually started doing that with some of our kids who are struggling. The kids who are below, we didn't go backwards, we went forward, and we were pre-teaching them so that when we did the fraction lesson, they actually had some knowledge and they could keep up in the regular classroom. So very valid points. Yes, pre-teaching is great. It helps with the prior knowledge and helps build that resource. The question is, can you do it correctly? And so yes, do it. Yes, try it, but also check your data. You know, that's what we do, is we do something, we implement it, we check our data. Is it having an impact? Great. Let's try to tweak it a little bit more and keep doing it, but just keep on that cycle of checking your data. I can't emphasize that enough. You know, my staff, I say to them, is it really working? Is what you're doing having an impact? What does the research say? What does your data say? And what do other people say by looking in? So excellent points. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I think on every one of these, we could debate all day. Like the retention one, I just heard last week, another person who runs another school said, let's retain the child. Well, they're a 5th grader. And I said, yeah, sure. You know, it's going to help the child for 6 months. And research does say the first 6 months are great. But what they don't say in that research is that they're 10 times more likely to fail. They're 10 times more likely to drop out of school. If you retain a child twice, they're 100 times more likely to drop out of school. You get a little bump, but it doesn't sustain. The kids they're more mature than their peers. They know they were held back. There's so many long-term effects that happen with retention. Plus, you know, if you're gonna do retention, you have to at least use Light's retention scale. It's a scale that asks questions like some of the questions do they have a sibling who's older, 1 year? Are they the tallest in their class? Are they the most mature in their class? Do they have any special needs? The Light's retention scale is at least the very minimum you should do if you're thinking of retention. And I would actually say to you, it doesn't help. It doesn't really help at all. And it has such a negative impact. Oh, more homework. You know, homework is always the topic. Parents always love to talk homework. And I just say to them, you have to watch the video. You have to buy Alfie Cohen's video and watch it. So you can add something on homework. I'd love to talk homework. Maybe I should do my whole speech on homework. Go ahead about homework. I think it's Mira, I can't hear you. Maybe you'll have to type your question in because we're not hearing you. I don't know if your microphone's picking up. Okay, any other questions for me? Now, oh, there you go, go ahead.
Yes. People give the homework for the sake of homework, or they have to improve the performance, how much what they taught, whether they have followed or not. This is the actual intention, but people give casually whatever they like. So it's not trouble the child. What I taught, whether the child followed or not, that should be my intention. Then child definitely does. They won't copy. They don't rely on somebody else. Hope I am true.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. If you watch the movie, it's so funny because homework is one of those things that we always try to justify homework, or we always try to say, well, what if it's really good homework? What if I design a great lesson where we're talking about how much a tree grows in a year, and we go out and measure the tree, and it's just the research isn't there, and so I'm all in favor of doing what the research indicates, and homework is way down the list. So I focus my effort so much on the top things. Yeah, I would encourage you all to just go and read that list, John Hattie's Visible Learning. Check out and see what the top things are, and I bet you can say, are we doing any of those? If so, which ones are we doing? And maybe, so what I did with my staff that was kind of a fun activity is take that list, share it with them, and say, which of these top 20 things are we doing as a school? Which of them are we doing really well, and which one of them are we sort of doing? Which one of the bottom 50 are we doing? Which ones of the bottom 50 can we stop doing and focus more on the top 10? And my staff actually came up with the ideas. They were the ones who said, oh my goodness, we're spending so much time on these other things. Let's go focus on these other things at the top. And we had book studies, and we had people reading research, and I said, you go find out what this says. I want to know what Piagetian programs is, and what is that about, and why is that so important, and why is it so important? And my staff came back and said, Mr. Nate, you have to give kids things at their level or what they're ready for. You can't give them things that are too hard or too easy. That's a waste of time. You can give them things that are a little bit harder every once in a while, but most of what they do should be a little bit at their level or a little bit higher. You should just be striving a little bit at a time. I was like, oh, that makes sense. If it's too hard, kids can't do it and they forget it. If it's too easy, they say this is boring and they stop. It's that finding the sweet spot. It's that finding that push that's going to get them over the top. All right, any other questions? You can type them in, or you can unmute yourself. A good teacher has good wait time. Well, I guess that's it. I think I solved all the world's problems in one session. Yeah, the teachers do need to do their homework first. Yes. Get used to give my students and teachers the results of research. Ask them to find the research questions. That's what homework interesting work becomes. Yes, I totally agree. Get your kids to do the research on research. All right, so I think without any other questions, I would challenge everyone. Oh, let's see, why teaching differs from person to person? I think it's because we're all trained differently. We all have a background that's different. Maybe I should tell you personally, my father was a teacher. But he wasn't the reason why I'm a good teacher. It was my mom. And my mom grew up in a very poor family. She had no money ever. Grandpa would put 35 cents on the table, and that's all the money that he ever gave to her, and that 35 cents was for her lunch. She told me that all the time, and she said, Nate, I never got to go to college. I didn't get to do all those things. But actually, my mom is probably the best teacher that I've ever known in my life. She was a receptionist at a medical center. She greeted people, but she was such a good teacher. She spent so many time asking me questions, making me think things through. She never taught me anything, but she taught me how to learn and how to figure things out on my own. I have audio and visual dyslexia, and it's been a struggle for me my entire life, but I never really knew that because my mom always taught me how to solve problems and not to let them get in my way. So I was always trying to figure things out. I was always trying to solve problems. She bought me Lego sets. She bought me puzzles, all those wooden little puzzles, all those puzzle boxes. She bought me a breakout box. I'm sure you guys know what those are, but a box with all those locks on it. And, she challenges me all the time to do that, look at the research or to figure things out and move forward. It's amazing. I think that's why teaching differs so much. Also a good college, a good teaching college teaches a lot of these skill sets, but none of this that I told you today was told to me in any college class I ever took. So I kind of want to go back and teach, what is it, university by the people or for the people, where it's the free university, and kind of give this session for them. I hope that you got something out of the session today. I hope that it pushes you to question what you're doing, to take what you're doing and apply some research to it, check the data out once you've done it for a little while, and then come back to it and adjust it again based on more research. It's kind of a fun cycle, and it keeps me in my job. I love it.